This is On FM on 101.4.
I know, with one...
For spices, we can have as many curries as we like, but absolutely no tea.
Do you think as well, with women in comedy, do you think because stereotypical, stereotypical comedy is not as fun, is not as popular anymore, so it's not as popular, I don't find, to go, or not as acceptable, to go for a man to go on stage and talk about being a man and sex and, you know, his wife and stuff like that, and like, oh, my wife slags me off, or that sort of, it's just completely outdated. So now, sex-specific, genre, or gender-specific...
Well, that's like, you know, Jim Davidson, you know, his material is just...
And you wouldn't go on and talk about just being, you know, you know, periods.
No,
you know, that's
exactly.
it, you know, or giving birth, as we tend to say, like, every single show we end up talking about birthing. I don't know what's wrong with us, there must be something in the water.
But also, I think people want more intelligent comedy than just, you know, mother-in-law jokes. That's not what's funny anymore. It's kind of lazy. I mean, we were talking, I think, last week about Jimmy Carr, and someone was saying, you know, I think actually people prefer comedy like, you know, Lee Evans, because it's much more story-based, it's more interesting, and you kind of engage with it more. Whereas if someone's reading out one-liners, it's not as I mean, it's not that hard to have a memory.
I mean, I have to say, I went to see Jimmy Carr in Edinburgh last year, and while I sort of really enjoy his like quick wit on like panel shows, and for me personally, he did like a 1 hour 15-minute show, and I enjoyed it, and then up to a point I started saying, okay, this is like the same sex jokes, religion jokes, kind of edgy.
Same with Simon. I'm still alive, and he was similar. I actually was a bit, you know, I just thought I wasn't bowled over by him.
But I think,
do you think his laugh's real, Jimmy Carr's laugh?
No, he suddenly got that laugh. He got it. What
is it? Is it the laugh?
Is it like a well, right?
I was like, someone's gone, you need a laugh. You've got to go that
you're
laugh.
not likeable enough.
Do
you know who I love? John Richardson.
He's amazing.
I like him. He's great.
Him.
Amazing.
He's the sort of one you just want your friend to go out with. You know, like when you think my friendship group is lacking a John Richardson as a
He's very sharp, but kind of quietly sharp.
But a little bit geeky and a little bit, you know.
And he always talks about never having a girlfriend and being single forever and things like that.
Yeah, he has this very...
One question I'd love to ask you.
Yes.
Comedy's under incredible scrutiny at the moment, isn't it? Because of the Ricky Gervais affair and, you know, where do you draw the line? You're familiar with all of that one? He used that word,
Oh, no, tell...
He was referencing... kind of special needs thing.
Well, I mean, he used the word mong. We can say that. I felt uncomfortable. I felt really uncomfortable during his live show. The big debate at the moment is about where comedians draw the line. Is there anything that you can't tell a joke about? And I would love to ask you, is there anything that you would shy away from telling a joke about? Do you feel you have a social responsibility when telling a joke?
Oh, that is a good question.
Isn't it?
You know, for me personally, my natural inclination anyway is not to tell those sort of jokes.
Or be controversial.
However, it's like people like, what's his name? Frankie Boyle. I've always enjoyed his stuff. But for me, I have to take him in small doses. Only because, like, you know, when he comes up with the things he says, I see, like, there's an intelligence to what he says, and it's very funny.
And you don't want to lose everything for the sake of you shutting him off so you don't get to experience. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
The comedian...
I can't have a whole show with him. I like him in small doses, you know.
It's very strong though, isn't it? It's almost like you couldn't sit through an hour and a half of it. It's so much.
Yeah.
You think, how can I... A, how do I react? And B, can I... It's quite kind of like a battering, or like a moral battering. You think,
Bernard Manning, I should find incredibly offensive, and he is. But the fact is, if I see Bernard Manning and he's coming on, remember I grew up as a child kind of thing, I didn't really take much of what his meanings were. The second I would be... It was just the persona that I found funny.
I definitely draw my line at Bernard Manning. Because there's no kind of skill. There's no sophistication to it. It's just blatant, offensive.
The thing is, though, do you not think...
You come to a point where you have to draw the line...
And you have to imagine him as a character.
But you can laugh,
you don't imagine that he actually... You have to sort of think, he doesn't think like that, it's all a character.
I think he probably did think
that he... Which he probably did think like that. You think, actually, can I take on board how angry that makes me that he considers it okay to think and say the things that he does? So you sort of have to kind of put him in book and say...
Things out of the equation and think of how that affects other people. If you keep it personal and you just think, well, it's okay for me, I can enjoying.
Yeah.
I think that's good enough. And we have a responsibility to everybody around us. And if we condone certain things, knowing that it's wrong but it makes you laugh, well, I'm not going to go out and tell racist jokes for the sake it's all right because I feel I can.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. We have a responsibility not to spread
you have to say
negatives.
It's not funny.
And as women comedians who are breaking down barriers all the time, because you're in that position now of you're one of those pioneers almost of comedians in this country who are trying to break down barriers and to create a foundation for women comedians to break through. But you're also a black female.
Yeah.
So the expectations on your audience are going to be, are you going to talk about your own community?
Yeah, I have to say, very often, I've always had that sort of sense of responsibility. I don't want to be the sort of stereotypical black female comedian, talking about negative inner city culture or doing voices, there's a certain stage of all the black comics, all they just do their Nigerian accents.
Exactly, yes.
I always sort of want to put an intelligent kind of different angle to my humour, but whatever I feel a natural inclination towards is what I kind of bring out, and I think so far it hasn't been anything which has been too hack, you know what I mean? Because that's the other thing, you get to the point where you're like, I'm just doing the same old hack material,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. I think, but then again, in the same breath, I think as a white female, I would, if I was going to I always make a joke about the fact that I'm a token white girl, and that I'm really, so if I can't bring up the fact that I'm, I'm always taking the mick out of myself, saying I'm a bit geeky, and I can't really, things like that about me being white. So if I can... I know what you mean. It's like that because it's been done, but it's sort of,
I think basically you have to work with the material comes out of what you experience. Do you know what I mean? So to an extent, you can't really get too far away from certain subject matters, but it's sort of been having the skill to sort of tell them in an original way.
This is where those kind of courses that you were talking about earlier, that you feel like going on one, is why you should go on one. Because there are certain, like you were saying, you could tell the difference between those who'd been on a course and those who hadn't.
Yeah.
It's the same way. If you apply yourself to a certain way of doing your comedy, without having to go to, once you've been on a course, that is, you can shape what you're doing in a much better way. So anybody who wants to study comedy should follow your advice and absolutely go and do a course. If anybody's listening who wants to be a comedian, take the course.
Take the course. Let's have a bit of Ellen John.
This is On FM on 101.4.